Welcome everybody. My name is Deanna Castro. I'm a team leader for the North Reading chapter of Stand for Children. Thank you all for coming here today. I want to introduce Kim Foster. For those of you who don't know Kim, she's also a dedicated member of North Reading United for Education. And I want to thank Kim for organizing to have our state leaders here today and also for putting together this incredible agenda. Kim Foster, Marcy Bailey, and myself started our state level efforts 3 years ago with a letter writing campaign, which should seem very familiar to you all right now. And I know hundreds of you sent letters to Brad and to Bruce, who were our target of those letters 3 years ago. And we actually asked for many things, but the three things that we asked for 3 years ago were additional assistance for local aid for the town of North Reading. We asked for legislation that would help with the rising costs of health insurance for employees that were eating into the budgets. And we also asked them for help with Chapter 70 reform, which was inequitable for towns like North Reading and others. As you can see, Brad and Bruce have both been extremely proactive about getting additional aid or local aid assistance for North Reading, and they continue to provide local aid resolutions to do so. So they've been huge advocates. They also worked with their colleagues to get some of those health insurance costs off the table by allowing the group insurance contract to be open to municipalities, and that just happened last year. We're hoping that North Reading will be the beneficiaries of that effort next year, and I know the town administrator is working very hard to that end. The one thing that I think is still a huge challenge and hasn't been helped, although we've been beneficiaries of additional Chapter 78 over the last couple of years, is the Chapter 70 formula, which we're going to talk an awful lot about today. So with that, I'm going to try to accomplish just a couple of things before we get into the discussion with Bruce and with Brad. I wanted to welcome you all here. I want to formally introduce you to our state leaders so that you know a little bit about their background, and then I want to introduce you, for some of you who may be new to it, to an incredible organization called Stand for Children. So welcome. Education funding is a community concern, a growing community concern. It's very encouraging to see parents and leaders all rallying behind the cry for education funding for our children. The one thing I don't want to forget to do today is to thank Bob Masseri, who's been a leader and an advocate locally here and has done an incredible amount of work at the local level to make education a priority. And he's worked very hard to get some of the cuts back that we experienced last year. The unfortunate thing about the work that he's had to do is he's had to take from other town positions or town government in order to take care of the schools, which is not an adequate way of funding the schools. But to that end, I'm very grateful to him. Last year, North Reading allowed quality education to become optional by allowing an override, giving voters the ability to say yes or no to education. The override failed, eliminating 10 teaching positions and not hiring 8 additional teachers that were needed to help with growing enrollment and class size concerns. This failure caused deep and drastic cuts to the very core of the North Reading public school system, including reductions in art, music, PE, technology, library access, and electives for our high school students. Student learning time plunged to the state minimums at a time. Hi, Bruce.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. Good to see you.
Thanks for coming.
Sorry, well, it's good. Good to see
That's
you.
okay.
Just get started.
We were just getting started.
You can disregard my message. I said I'd see you in 3 or 4 minutes.
Okay.
You know what, I'm just going to start with what actually happened last year, Bruce, so we can paint a picture for you about the current conditions in our school system.
Great.
All right. Hi, Janice. Last year, North Reading allowed education to become optional by allowing an override, giving voters the ability to say yes or no to education. And the override failed, eliminating 10 teaching positions and not hiring 8 others that were drastically needed to address our enrollment and class size issues. The failure of the override caused deep and drastic cuts to the very core of our school system, including reductions in art, music, PE, technology, library access, and electives for our high school students. Student learning time plunged to the state minimums at a time when increasing the school day in other communities has yielded some very positive results. It also forced our middle schoolers to have study halls, sometimes 2 and 3 in one day, at a time when state mandates and requirements are demanding more of our children. The failure of the override eliminated our band and chorus programs, increased our class sizes across the district, forced our half-day kindergarten program to meet 4 times a week, and all of our elementary and middle school students have had an early release day every Wednesday for this entire school year. Locally, our Board of Selectmen have worked hard to restore many of the teachers and the programs that were cut this year, but we are still behind at least by $234,000 to restore just the cuts from last year. Locally, we feel we've done everything we can to impact our school funding crisis that's been brewing since 2002, when Massachusetts led the nation in cutting state education aid more than any other state in this country. According to the Mass Municipal Association, we're still $631 million behind pre-2002 levels, and communities like North Reading have never been fully restored. Our local crisis needs a state response, and that's why we've invited our state leaders to be here today to ask for their help. So let me formally introduce you to our State Senator Bruce Tarr and to Brad Jones. Senator Tarr, over there next to Ken, is a Republican senator from Gloucester. He's been a member of the Massachusetts General Court for 17 years, serving first as a member of the House of Representatives and as a senator since 1994. In 2007, Bruce was named Assistant Minority Leader. He served 17 communities, including his hometown Gloucester and North Reading. Bruce sits on 9 committees at the State House, notably the Senate Ways and Means and Children and Families. He serves his district as a member of 13 committees. He's received numerous rewards for his leadership and is an attorney on top of that. Representative Brad Jones is a Republican representative from North Reading who's been serving as a member of the House of Representatives for 14 years. Brad is a dedicated advocate for his constituents, never having missed a roll call vote. In 2002, Brad was elected the House Republican leader, making him the highest ranking Republican in the House at the State House today. Brad is a North Reading native, having served on many local committees, including the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen. Inside the State House, Brad is currently or has served on 10 committees, including Ways and Means. His district includes North Reading, Reading, Lynnfield, and Middleton. Brad and his wife Linda make their home here in North Reading. He has 2 children, one of which is in the North Reading Public School System. So thank you for being here today with us. Before we ask Bruce and Brad to address the concerns we have here in North Reading and at the state level, I want to introduce you to an incredible organization named Stand for Children. Stand for Children is the only grassroots education advocacy group in Massachusetts, and STAND exists because children don't have the political power to stand up for their fundamental needs. STAND's mission is to teach parents like us and concerned citizens to join together to win concrete, long-lasting improvements at the state and local level by advocating for policy reform and adequate education funding. STAND was founded in 2003 and has over 800 members from 60 communities, including our own official chapter here in North Reading, which we initiated after my children and I met with Senator Tarr in July, and he strongly urged our small community to gain a bigger voice by joining this powerful, growing organization. STAND's success in just 2 years has yielded $437 million in additional state education aid and $12 million in special ed assistance. Their energy brought 2,000 people from 85 communities to a rally at the State House last year, including North Reading, and we stayed behind, 400 of us, and lobbied 48 legislators that day. STAND has a very ambitious spring campaign focused on immediate financial relief to local cities and towns like North Reading by asking our legislators to increase Chapter 70 aid by at least $330 million, which is $100 million more than has already been approved by the governor and the House and Senate Ways and Means Committee. Additionally, STAND is asking legislators to raise the reimbursement of local special education tuition and transportation costs as the state is not paying its fair share. STAND is also focused on reform. We are calling on our legislators to define and cost out a 21st century education that prepares every child to graduate successfully and to take the steps to reform the outdated 15-year Chapter 70 formula that does not allow for stable, adequate, or equitable revenues for education. We're asking you today to break the gridlock on education reform and help us make positive change because 2,900 North Reading students and 1 million children across this Commonwealth cannot wait. And with that, I will turn it over to Kim, and we will ask you in lots of different ways to help us.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go right off the agenda we left this evening, that everyone has a copy of. What we can do is, you can choose to answer them, you can both answer them, I can put that in too, or you can, decide amongst yourself. It's your, hot point. These questions are really designed to focus on the upcoming year, the upcoming legislative year, which, apparently, this past year, we've done a lot. We appreciate all you've done in terms of the efforts, the House Docket 4651, and we appreciate everything. Like I said, we realize you are advocates for us, and we just want to continue to pose these questions and hope that this is how you feel around this coming year. First question, I guess I'll Bruce. Where do you think education lies in the list of priorities in the upcoming session? And then what is your vision for concrete and realistic public education improvements in this current legislation? And more importantly, I think at this point, FY09.
Great. Yeah, first of all, thank you for doing this.